Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. I am your host, Joe Kuzma, and let me tell you, most of you Steelers Nation still fired up about last Sunday. I get it. Frustrated, disappointed. I'm totally with you on this. My cousin Brad, you know, he doesn't listen to this show. He doesn't pay attention to me. He's busy with his own life. If you're listening, though, he knows. He's been trolling me. Most of you guys probably think I'm like on crazy pills because I've been talking about Landry Jones. And I'm coming from a position of, with this Steelers backup QB thing and some of the just ugly, hateful, non-supporting things that have been said on social media and other places, emails, comments on the website. I get it all. Trust me, I see it all. If you send it to me, guys, I get it. In fact, I got some calls on the hotline. I'm actually holding a couple of those for the New England Patriots preview. As usual, been putting those out on Friday, maybe late Friday afternoon after the Steelers get their practice in. I think they're usually wrapped about 12:30, 1 o'clock. We know who more than likely is in, out, or a game time decision for Sunday's game against the New England Patriots. As soon as we heard Ben was out, everyone, I know, you got disgusted. We're disgusted with injuries. I said it a week before they even played against Miami. I'm tired of seeing people get hurt in every single game. It was like we were good up until like maybe the Philadelphia Eagles game, and then people started dropping like flies. You got Shazier go down, and then Cam Hayward and Eli Rogers looked real promising, and you even had Robert Golden and oh, geez, I don't even know the whole list by now. And, of course, the season starts out with not having Bud Dupree, Ladarius Green. We may see Ladarius Green coming up. The word that's out now is, and I had a gut feeling about this. Now that Ben got hurt, I remember I was really saying, wow, what a weapon he would be to insert in and give something to the New England Patriots that they don't have film on. Well, that kind of goes out the window when you have Landry Jones. Not because of Landry Jones, by the way. You guys think I'm crazy. I'm just trying to support and lift this kid up. But let me make the point here that you got to get him ready. Your focus is on Landry Jones and getting this offense and this team rallied behind him and capable of putting up some points. You can't focus on having another new element out there that hasn't been involved this whole year yet. So Ladarius now pump the brakes on that. Looks like they could practice 2 times next week. They have 2 practice days for their bye week. Looks like that could happen. And speaking of, I know I'm disgusted. I'm irritated. Everybody thinks, oh, geez, here comes the Patriots. They're ranked number 1 in these power rankings and these ratings, and it's Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, and Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. They're going to come into Heinz Field, and we don't have Ben, our future Hall of Fame quarterback, and we got this, I'm going to put quotation marks up in the air, this bum Landry Jones, and it's just doom and gloom, and, you know, hey, you know what? The Patriots, they still have to play this game. They have to come in on Sunday, and they have to come to Heinz Field. And a lot of people are, I know, you're concerned about the backup QB situation. You're concerned about Ben. You're concerned about having Landry Jones for multiple games and Ben being out. Well, I need you guys to do me a favor. Go over to steelcityunderground.com and check out the article or articles posted by one of our contributors, Terry Fletcher, who is a medical professional, not a doctor, but she does talk and consult in this field. She has alphabet soup for credentials after her name. She's going to chuckle about that, and it's all in good fun. But Terry is very knowledgeable, has been around these type of procedures and things. She calls it routine. You know, that she knows this stuff like the back of her hand, okay? And she's like booked up for keynote speeches and everything else. You can find out her whole background. It's at the footer of these articles she wrote, terryfletcher.net. Put that out there a little bit for you, Terry. Maybe could get you some more bookings from any other people in your field that happen to be listening to this, because she's talking about Big Ben's injury. And the main feeling is that most of these talking heads like Chris Mortensen or Ian Rappaport. Now, Chris, I have a lot of respect for Chris, but I think Chris has been trying to keep up with these like Adam Schefter's and Ian Rappaport's of the world that in this new Twitterverse type reporting, journalism, whatever, that, you know, even positions myself as an expert. And like I said, I'm a fan, guys. I'm you know, I know my stuff. I got my stuff together. I'm very respectful. Sometimes I could be intense, but I don't like talking smack about anybody within the same field. And these guys all work hard, and sometimes the information they put out there is bad based on somebody else's thing. But man, can you see? It's been everything from 2 to 4, 2 to 6, 4 to 6. Terry says she thinks these 20 days Ben will have off between the procedure from this past Monday on through to the Ravens game, almost 3 weeks, should be enough to get Ben back on the field. We know Ben's a warrior. He's certainly had worse injuries that have had a longer prognosis for recovery, and he was already on the field. So she writes about all of this. So we may only have one game with Landry Jones, maybe worst case scenario, 2 games. So we're looking at a Patriots game with a week to get this guy. I want to call him a kid, and somebody said, no, he's not a kid. Okay, yeah, he's, I think, 27. But you know what? He's still a kid. He's inexperienced when it comes to the NFL still. He doesn't have a whole lot of starts under his belt, a whole lot of reps. But what little we've seen good, we've seen bad. And a lot of people are complaining about the backup situation, whatnot. We have a ton of content out on Steel City Underground all week. Film room stuff, what went right and wrong, offense and defense in Miami. And then also, like with Landry Jones, we could tell what he's going to do. If he's under center, if he's in shotgun, is he compatible with Antonio Brown? Can he maybe stretch the field with Sammy Coates or Darius Hayward-Bay? It's all there. Totally capable. But some people just feel that the backup quarterback situation is unsettled. A lot of people calling for Zach Mettenberger, who's been here about a total of 6 weeks compared to the 4 years that Landry Jones has been in this system. And that was something that was tweeted out by Aditi Kikwala just a couple days ago, but I've been saying it all along. I've been saying it ever since even Zach Mettenberger showed up here, and people are like, oh, well, why don't we have another veteran quarterback that we bring in? Well, that's something that the Steelers did. Why didn't we draft a quarterback? Well, when they didn't draft a quarterback, they re-signed the veteran that they had, Bruce Gradkowski, who then got hurt and played like maybe a series in the preseason. What was that? The second game, first week, second week, and then he was done. And more than likely his career is finished. A journeyman guy, veteran, capable. I think he would have been solid. Would I feel better if Bruce were out there on Sunday than Landry? Maybe. I would say I'll lean towards yes on that end of the spectrum, more toward yes than no. I get it, because we know more about Bruce than we know about Landry. All we've seen with Landry is he plays with a lot of camp buddies, a lot of guys that aren't in the NFL right now during the preseason, and that doesn't turn out so well. He had a 4-interception game performance against the Philadelphia Eagles in the preseason, and there was a podcast, there's all kind of articles, there's things that have been resharing that same content out over the last week, just to point out that you forget about tip passes, bad routes. There's all kind of circumstances, but there's been good along with the bad. But people are still they're not content with this. They want to know, why haven't the Steelers replaced Ben Roethlisberger? What is the life after Ben Roethlisberger? And let me tell you, this Ben Roethlisberger thing, he looks like he got kicked in the shin by Ndamukong Suh. And that has come out. I mean, I didn't even pick up on that on Sunday. And then I rewatched quite a bit of game film between now and then and still didn't pick up on it. And I don't know who to credit with. ESPN has it out there, and Bleacher Reports. So somebody, one of those bigger news outlets had reported and showed this part of the film. And now I guess the team is going to ask. The Steelers usually don't try and put fires, make fires that they don't want to put out, so to speak. And we've seen this happen with questionable calls and controversy and things that have happened with Pittsburgh's games before. So who knows if they're really doing this, but they've probably asked because Suh is a repeat offender. Just like Vontaze Burfict and his hit on Martellus Bennett, and the league isn't going to suspend him, and he's only getting a fine. Oh, come on. I mean, get rid of this dirty play in the league. This is going to hurt a team that is 4-2. In fact, is Pittsburgh 4-2 if Ben doesn't get hurt against the Dolphins? There's a question for you there. Real easy. And the season's not over, folks. 4-2 right now. They could lose the next 2. Ben comes back. He's healthy. And they're still a 500 ball club in an AFC North where all those teams lost. The Cincinnati Bengals aren't as good as they were last year. The Ravens aren't good, period. And now Joe Flacco apparently has a shoulder injury too. And the Browns have not won a game. So it's not all doom and gloom. We could ride this out with Landry Jones, but people are saying, why do we have Landry Jones? We wasted a 4th-round pick on him in 2013. Well, who are some of the guys that maybe the Steelers could have had instead of Landry Jones in that draft? I mean, how long are you going to wait to replace Ben Roethlisberger? Why aren't we doing it right now? Well, why do we need to replace Ben Roethlisberger? What is Ben now, 33, 34? I know he's in my age range. He's not an old man by any means. You got Tom Brady, who's 39, just turned 39. And you've had other players. Peyton Manning was up there. Now Peyton Manning started to lose his arm strength. He didn't look very spry last season, but he played a very long time in this league. And I think, Ben's taken hits, but Ben has like the 2nd or 3rd best completion percentage with fast release time. It was just put out by Pro Football Focus. Todd Haley brought in here several years ago to make Ben more of a pocket guy and to get rid of the ball quick. And the offensive line, whenever it's failed Ben, that's where we see Ben get hurt. We saw it happen with the Rams last year, and you had you didn't have Marquise Pouncey out there, and now we see it happen again with this Dolphins. Once again, 2 very good defensive lines. Last year with the Rams, this year with the Dolphins. A lot of people didn't want to give it credit, but it's Mario Williams, it's Ndamukong Suh, whatever Jones or whatever. I think he played with the Titans. Missing somebody here, Cameron Wake. Cameron Wake, who had a sack in this game too. So you got to give credit where credit's due. These are also professionals and very good ball players that are on the opposing side. Steelers with Chris Hubbard playing at tackle, and you still have Jesse James, who has some woes blocking as a blocking tight end. Of course, we knew that's why he was a 5th-round pick. Pretty honest there. Just criticism where it's due. Doing better, not doing fantastic, not doing great. We've seen it, and we knew this could be a liability, and this is what happened. But how long before you replace Ben Roethlisberger? I mean, you got people calling in XM radio and saying, well, I wish they should have took Paxton Lynch or something. Let me tell you, this is the situation that ends up happening here. You end up taking a quarterback in this past draft, the 2016 NFL draft. And I'm going to look back at this Landry Jones pick in a second, but you take a pick and you end up with the Brock Osweiler situation, a successful Denver Broncos team that has to decide who they franchise tag. Do they franchise tag Brock Osweiler, or do they franchise tag Von Miller? We got to pay Von Miller. We can't pay. We can pay you, Brock, but we can't pay you this much. Maybe not as much as the Texans. Oh well, see you later. Now they don't have Peyton Manning or Brock Osweiler, and they have a 7th-round guy that they took a previous year before Trevor Siemian, who's basically been propped up by a very good defense. Let's face it, this is a situation much like a lot of those Pittsburgh Steelers teams where we had Cordell Stewart wasn't the greatest quarterback, Tommy Maddox wasn't the greatest quarterback, you had Kent Graham, you had Jim Miller, maybe a few other names in there that I'm missing during those Cowher era teams that had excellent defenses. I mean, even look at Ben as a rookie, propped up quite a bit. They didn't score. I mean, this is the same thing the Cardinals were knocked for. I think through the game they just played, was that Monday night or Sunday night, where they hadn't scored a touchdown in the first quarter all year. This was the same reason Bruce Arians got canned in Pittsburgh, and people want to argue about it, but face it, the facts are the facts. They weren't scoring points. Ben was getting hit like a piñata. Now, Ben getting hurt recently, maybe not totally all his fault. He's getting up there in age. Things happen, okay? Things happen. So how long before you replace Ben? Well, if you take somebody this year, 2016 draft, you're looking in 4 years. After 4 years, if Ben could still play, and he's not 40 yet, he may make it to play in 38, 39, 40 years old. We don't know. We don't know this. If you had a career-ending injury tomorrow, you can't plan for that. Look what happened to Aaron Smith. Remember, Aaron Smith was like this phenomenal defensive end for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They didn't have a backup plan for losing Aaron Smith. They didn't really have a backup plan because they thought he would be playing a lot longer, and Casey Hampton got older too, and they're still facing the problems of trying to replace too many players, and then also having some that they maybe didn't pan out the way that they had thought or stuck around. Jason Worlds, who was probably an all right player, above average, and then just retired from football. I mean, you cannot plan for some of these things. Or Lamar Woodley, a guy they pay a lot of money, who got hurt and was not available on the field. And after having probably the best start of maybe any Steelers linebacker in history, he was MVP type guy and everything, Pro Bowler, and had how many sacks in those 3-4 years starting out as a 2nd-round pick. So you got to draft players on both sides of the ball too. So they've been heavily focused on defense here and trying to repair that defense. They're not going to, I don't think they burn a first-round pick on somebody like Paxton Lynch. It's just not going to happen, and they're certainly not going to trade up to get a Jared Goff or a Carson Wentz. Some people look, oh, these rookies are doing so great. Well, Goff he's still not even playing. You got Case Keenum. Case Keenum, he can't beat out Case Keenum right now. And part of that is Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher has a history of making quarterbacks wait, as we saw with Steve Air McNair back when Fisher was coaching the Oilers and Titans. And it's just I don't know. I don't know. When you're talking about developing a quarterback and you're talking about replacing Ben Roethlisberger, I had mentioned prior, back towards the draft, I think the Steelers were probably looking at a QB, and the guy they were looking at just didn't fall to where they had picks. They were missing a 5th-round pick, and you look in the 4th round, they took a lineman who's on IR right now as a rookie, who probably, if he wasn't on IR, may even be playing because of what happened with Marcus Gilbert and Ryan Harris. I mean, you have no backup plan there whatsoever. You end up going to camp, and you have all of these tackles, and now you don't have 3 of them when you're playing like on last weekend or the previous weekend. I mean, it's just it's a shot to the heart. Like, what are you supposed to do? You can only plan for so much. And thinking that they would take Paxton Lynch instead of a corner. Everybody's been begging for a corner. What was it, like 20-some years they didn't draft a cornerback in the 1st round, and you want a quarterback instead? I think that's pretty foolish. And if you look at some of these picks that have been made, I don't know. The guy they were looking for probably wasn't there. They signed Bruce Gradkowski, Monday, right after the draft is completed. So 2 days after, that was kind of their backup plan. And they talk about developing a quarterback. So if you're not going to use a 1st-rounder, we should use a mid-round draft pick. Well, they did. This is Landry Jones, folks. 4th-round draft pick. Well, they could have just took Shamarko Thomas and not made that trade and wasted one of the picks a year later and they not pick Landry Jones. But do you or do you not want them to develop a young quarterback? That's the question here. And when you take a mid-round quarterback, are you expecting someone that's better or worse than Landry Jones, or maybe about the same? What exactly are we looking to get here? So this is where I'm getting at with this. You take a look at some of the QBs that were taken, and the first 2 rounds, the Pittsburgh Steelers, let me see. Let me pull it up here. I have the 2013 draft. Landry Jones selected 115th overall in the 4th round before he gets picked. E.J. Manuel, who has done next to nothing in Buffalo, and they sold the farm to get Sammy Watkins and then sold the farm again to get this guy. And Watkins can't stay healthy and on the field, though I agree he's probably is one of the rare special talents that you may have wanted to pony up for and get in the NFL draft if you're going to make that move. But E.J. Manuel he lost his job to Kyle Orton, who was basically retired from football, supposed to be gone, and then they convinced him to play like another year or so up in Buffalo. And then you have the Ravens 2011 6th-round draft choice come in last year with the Rex Ryan regime, and he starts over E.J. Manuel as well. So I don't know. The Steelers that year take Jarvis Jones. I don't see E.J. Manuel being anywhere in the game plan. And then you see Geno Smith is the next guy taken in this draft. And Geno's going to get the start for the New York Jets now, and a lot of people feel that Geno is better than Fitzpatrick, and he has this and this and that, and he has whatever statistics when he has time to pass. And maybe he has the weapons now that they don't have Decker right now, but Quincy Enunwa we saw was a pretty capable wide receiver. Matt Forte's there, Brandon Marshall. They brought in Austin Seferian-Jenkins as a tight end. They're trying to make that offense gel, but Fitzpatrick has been absolutely terrible this year. So we'll see where Geno Smith is, but he himself was not very good either. He had an 8-8 record. He was only completing 55.8% of his passes. He had 12 touchdowns to 21 interceptions. I mean, that's pretty bad. I mean, if Landry Jones is in that spot, probably just as bad, probably, maybe worse. I don't know. But you're looking at, would you have wanted to waste that 2nd-round draft choice on Geno Smith if he were available, or would you have rather had Le'Veon Bell, who we ended up taking instead? I rest my case there. Mike Glennon, here's a guy that Tampa Bay Buccaneers want like first or second round draft choices for. Has been riding the pine for a while, lost his starting job when they go. Glennon, let me put it this way. When you change coaches like in front offices and everything, everybody is going to hitch their saddles to their guy. So they're hitching their saddles to Jameis Winston, and Mike Glennon's been kind of in the quarterback purgatory right now. And he's actually been okay. 5-13 lifetime as a starter, but that's because he plays for Tampa Bay. And he's thrown for 4,025 yards, 29 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, respectable numbers. He came into Pittsburgh about a year or two ago and beat us at home. Now, the Steelers that round draft Marcus Wheaton. So still, no complaints. Glennon, he would be just riding the bench in Pittsburgh too, and that would have nothing to do with coaching or front office changes. So the next guy, Matt Barkley, this kid from USC. When has a USC quarterback ever done anything of importance? I hear people saying they should trade for Mark Sanchez. What would Mark Sanchez do within a week? I mean, he did nothing. He lost his job with the Jets. He was terrible in Philadelphia. He goes to Denver and gets cut in training camp practically. And then, of course, the Cowboys only pick him up because their own backup guy. They weren't really sold on starting a rookie like Dak Prescott, who I'll get to. But then Tony Romo gets hurt too, and Dak just kind of gets thrown into the fire. And they had Sanchez there, and Sanchez didn't start over Dak either. Not that he had a lot of time to learn the system, and that was part of the problem with Michael Vick last year, which I will mention. Ryan Nassib, probably the closest comparison to Landry Jones. He was taken 5 picks before Landry was. He has barely played in the NFL whatsoever. He's had some up and down completion rates even in the preseason. Very erratic play, much, almost like a clone, very similar. Nassib looks like he plays scared as well. Don't really know. Jury's out on him. I can't say. He's had 3 touchdowns and 3 picks. I want to say 41.3% of his passes on 75 attempts in his preseason were actually completed, so his completion is very bad, and he's about half to half with touchdowns and interceptions. He's prone to turning the ball over. So then there's Brad Sorensen, and he's just kind of hanging around, bouncing around from 5-6 teams. That's pretty much the same case with most of these guys. There's Zach Dysert. He wouldn't play a snap. He hasn't played a snap in the NFL. He gets moved around to different rosters. There's B.J. Daniels, who has moved from quarterback to wide receiver. He's bounced around a bunch of rosters. And then Sean Renfrey, who was taken 6 picks before Mr. Irrelevant. And they don't use him very much in the preseason at all either. So these are all guys that I don't know that they would have been better choices as far as even the developmental picks that everyone clamors for. But if you end up just going through several drafts later, you have the first 2 rounds of 2014, which the Steelers selected Ryan Shazier and Stephon Tuitt. So Blake Bortles is at the top of that class. You weren't going to move up. You weren't going to get him. And he is the Ben Roethlisberger clone. Jury's still out on him. Jaguars team looks like they're loaded with talent, and it just maybe has poor coaching. Don't know what that situation's like. Just thank God we're all Steelers fans and we don't have Jacksonville as our team with that whole setup there. But it gets even worse because Johnny Manziel taken next. He's not even in the league, and that's pretty much his own woes. He goes to Cleveland, which is another dumpster fire. You got Teddy Bridgewater, who the Vikings move up into the first round to take, and that's so they can get that maybe cheaper 5th round or 5th year option off the rookie contract after the first 4 years. Teddy not asked to throw a whole lot of balls, mainly a running team behind Adrian Peterson last year. You're seeing them open it up a little more now without Adrian and with Sam Bradford, but once again, a very defensive-oriented type team that's helping carry Minnesota there to the record that they have now. Derek Carr goes in the 2nd round. Very surprising, I thought, that the Cleveland Browns didn't hold on or even take him in the 1st, and he's been pretty solid with the Oakland Raiders. He is a dependable starter. And then Jimmy Garoppolo is taken, I believe, in the 3rd or 4th round here by the New England Patriots. I think it's the 4th round. And in the fourth round, or right before, actually, the Steelers end up taking in the 4th round Martavis Bryant. Well, Would you like any of these guys that came after Martavis Bryant instead of Martavis Bryant? There's Logan Thomas. There's Tom Savage with the Texans. Well, Tom Savage hasn't done anything. Aaron Murray, who was cut by the Chiefs. A.J. McCarron, probably the only one there that you might say, hey, you know what? Somebody missed on that completely. And people miss on picks all the time. Just ask Tom Brady. Just ask Antonio Brown about that going in the 6th round. And those guys will both probably, as long as AB keeps it up, probably be Hall of Fame players. No doubt that Brady will be, even though I hate saying that. It made me throw up in my mouth a little bit. Zach Mettenberger. Hello. He's with the Steelers right now. Jury's out, but you know what? Terrible preseason. He's the first draft pick by Ken Wisenhunt down there with the Tennessee Titans, okay? And then they end up with Marcus Mariota. They end up with pretty much anybody they can get besides Mettenberger, an 0-10 starter in his career. And he's a late round flyer. Wisenhunt gets canned from Tennessee, goes over back to his old job as the offensive coordinator for the San Diego Chargers this season, brings Zach with him, and then Zach still doesn't make the team. It doesn't necessarily bode well for him, but, big body, similar, we could see he could air it out, somewhat accurate quarterback, especially throwing downfield, needs some time. We'll see what ends up happening. He could be the backup next year. We'll see. This is the audition for Landry Jones. In fact, some other team may bite and offer him a large contract, like maybe not a Brock Osweiler contract, but you never know. You never know. Stranger things have happened. Just look at Matt Flynn. He had a very good game up in Green Bay. Hasn't been anybody since. Gets a big contract from the Seahawks and then doesn't even win that job because they draft Russell Wilson in the 3rd round and didn't even expect him to be maybe the quarterback that he's turned out to be too. So David Fales, Keith Wenning, Taj Boyd. Here's another guy that ended up in Steelers camp a year removed, I think. And Boyd, I don't even think he took a snap in the preseason. So that just kind of tells you, they were looking at some of these later round quarterbacks, Mettenberger and Boyd, both in this draft after they've already taken Landry Jones, and Boyd didn't make the roster, didn't even make it past the 1st round of cuts, I don't believe. Garrett Gilbert, another guy here. 2015, the class where you take Dupree, Senquez Golson, jury out there, Sammy Coates. So, Sammy Coates taken before Sean Mannion, Bryce Petty, Brett Hundley, and Trevor Siemian. Jury's out on all of those guys. They're only second-year players who pretty much ride the pine. Before that, of course, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota at the top of this 2015 draft class, and then Garrett Grayson somewhere before Coates is drafted. So I don't have any complaints with the Steelers not reaching for any of these guys because we don't know anything about them. And then, of course, this 2016 draft, as I said, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Paxton Lynch. Artie Burns taking a pick before Paxton Lynch. Of course, John Elway as my good friend who's a Denver Broncos fan. He says Elway's ruthless, moves up, got to get that guy. We haven't seen anything from Lynch yet either, and they're trying to develop him. Still takes time to develop these guys. Not everyone steps in like Big Ben and plays as a rookie. It's a very special set of circumstances. Ben Roethlisberger is a rare talent. Christian Hackenberg. The Jets have 4 QBs on their roster, so who do they have there? Is it Petty, I think, who I mentioned just earlier, and then Christian Hackenberg, and then they still have Geno Smith and Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, can you miss how many more times? I'm not saying they missed on the latter 2 guys. You guys still got Smith and Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick is probably out of this whole picture. We'll see how Smith plays. Then we're going to see if they're going to throw one of these young guys in there and how they might respond. Jacoby Brissett. Guarantee you the Patriots weren't looking to have him play either. And then, of course, he gets in there and he has to manage games, and that's the one goose egg that they have so far. Cody Kessler, actually, surprisingly not too terrible with what is a terrible Cleveland Browns team. I've seen worse up there in Cleveland. Connor Cook, he goes in round 4, as does Dak Prescott, who goes after the Gerald Hawkins pick. Now, Dak Prescott, I feel, may have fell pretty far. I think he fell into a very good situation, and most people don't realize he's not really asked to throw. I think he's only thrown more than 30 passes in a game once, and there's only another instance where he actually threw 30 on the nose. So he's not asked to throw too often. When he does, he's been good. He's been a good game manager. The Cowboys' offense is pretty much all Ezekiel Elliott, and they also have Alfred Morris there too. So they pound it with the run. This could be what we see from the Steelers, but I'm going to cover that in the very next episode about the New England Patriots preview game coming up. At the last name I want to throw out there from this draft, taken right after that Hawkins pick, round 4, Landry Jones, also taken in the 4th round, and I do believe that could be one of the guys that the Steelers who they might have been looking at. I'm also an Ohio State observer. I want to say a fan, but a very busy guy. But I will tell you that I saw all of these playoff games with Landry Jones. I'm not as hardcore on the Buckeyes as I am the Steelers, but I do pay attention to them living here in Ohio. And Landry looked a lot like a big body Ben Roethlisberger, just very raw. And I don't know that the Steelers thought, or anybody thought maybe, that the Buffalo Bills, they had a compensatory pick. So they took a flyer in round 4 on Landry, maybe thought somebody else might, maybe somebody like the Steelers might take a shot at him, and it just didn't work out. So what we're looking at here is developing a quarterback, and whether or not Landry Jones, it doesn't seem like the Steelers are too far off there. I mentioned a bunch of first-round guys who haven't quite cut the mustard, same with some second-round guys, and a bunch of other bodies that haven't seen playing time, and we really don't know what they have. So would you rather have somebody else? It's tough. Who do you go out there and get? They have players like Shaun Hill that didn't do too well. Barely. He's not like Shaun Hill has been around the block 3 and 4 times. And I don't know if that's somebody you would want in this situation, or like a Matt Castle. We saw how Castle's bounced around the league. He had that one good year up in New England. Sometimes it's the system. Sometimes it's opportunity. And this is what Landry Jones has this weekend, is an opportunity to show everyone, as we've been trying to show over on SteelCityUnderground.com, that we just want you to hashtag backup Landry. Get behind him, show him some support, because he's got an awful lot of pressure on him. He stands up in the team meeting the other day and addresses the team and says, "Don't panic." And that's all he says. And that's what I'm asking Steelers Nation to do, is to not panic. Get behind this kid, because you know what? If you boo him before he even takes a snap, or boo him on the very first bad pass that he has, that is not the type of support that this kid needs when he's playing the New England Patriots. And I will repeat all of this again on the preview episode that's coming up very soon. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Be safe, be good, and I will catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.